Hey guys, my name's Chidester, and welcome to the Head Smack podcast.
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack podcast. My name is Paul Pavoni, and I'm excited to have another misfit with me. I have Tad Chidester with me, and he has done over $100 million in sales in under 6 years. He's an entrepreneur and author who turned his passion for fitness into a multi-million-dollar online empire. From scaling his first seven-figure fitness business to co-founding elite CEOs, Tanner has helped clients generate over $1 billion in sales. He's the author of Infinite Income, sharing his 8-figure formula for online success. Welcome, Tanner. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. I think you're going to have a lot of great head smacks with somebody as we talk about sales and your online empire. And so I appreciate you coming on, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise, yeah, excited to be here. I'll do my best to deliver some value.
Oh, I think you will. And so usually the way I like to start this, I like to start with your origin story, just to learn a little bit more about you. And you can go as far back as you feel would be relevant. But let me hear the origin story of Tanner.
Yeah, so grew up in a family, 7 kids. Dad was a teacher. Mom stayed at home. Was kind of strange. Got bullied a lot. Around 12 years old, I decided I wanted to work out, go to the gym to beat these kids up. What happened is I stayed consistent and dedicated, and I started getting accolades in sports and compliments from girls. And I was like, ooh, that's nice. Put in hard work, you get a result, people compliment you. So from 12 to 22, I really pushed hard in sports. I really wanted to play in the National Football League or American football for anyone who's overseas. Got to the Division I level, had a lot of injuries. I also think I wasn't good enough, but I had tried as hard as I could. So when I walked away, I remember not having any regrets. Because there was guys with a lot more talent, but no one outworked me. I think I maximized what I had. And so
now, did you ever go back and beat up those bullies, or did you kind of forget about that after a while?
They stopped messing with me. That was the thing. Because I was in 6th grade, it wasn't normal. So I had muscles and everyone else didn't. And so they left me alone. It was a really cool feeling to see. And that reinforced to me, hey, hard work pays off. That was a huge lesson I learned at a young age. And I think that's made me a bit of who I am today and why I still work so hard.
Yeah, and your mindset changed after a while from being I'm a victim, I'm getting bullied to
once you start, I could do something about it. It's funny. Bullies, I think they made a lot of successful people because if they hadn't done that, I never would have pushed myself in that sense. So, at the time I was really upset, but now I probably owe them a lot of my success. Because that's really kind of how it shaped me. People just were mean to me. At 22, I dropped out of engineering because of a mentor. I had 1 year left of college. I had a 3.9 GPA. I was going to, set to make $100,000 plus a year. And my mentor sat me down, he was a friend of my dad's, and he said, why are you an engineer? It's the highest paying 4-year degree. I didn't want to be a doctor because, I'll be in school forever. And he laughed and said, oh, dude, there's ways to make way more money than that. I was like, okay, how? Because no one in my family ever had a business. And he basically made a trade-off. He said, hey, if you go back to church, because I wasn't going to church, I'll teach you everything I know about business. And so he started teaching me about business. And for 2 years, I had a low ticket fitness offer called the Rapid Muscle System. I made $2,000. And I would call him every 4 months trying to quit. I'd say 4 to 6 months. And 5 times he convinced me to stick with it. Because for 2 years, I was grinding day in, day out, no dating, no partying, no nothing. And I was getting nothing out of it. And so at 25 years old, I started to think, oh my gosh, at 22, people said you have time. At 25, they don't say that anymore. And
so where did this mentor come from?
Yeah, he was just a friend of my dad's. And his name's David Fry. He actually was connected to the ClickFunnels world. He's married to one of Russell Brunson's cousins, I believe. And that's how I found about ClickFunnels and got integrated with that community. And he just said, hey, dude, you have everything of what it takes. Just stick with it. So after 2 years, I was becoming pretty desperate. And I learned a lot from him, but he did a lot of low ticket stuff. And, if anyone knows anything about low ticket, it takes either a big audience or a lot of ad spend to make it work. And I had neither. And so I finally got desperate. I was 25. I was about to quit and go back to school. And I saw an ad on Facebook that said how to start an online fitness business. I clicked on the ad, paid everything I had to them. They high pressure sell the heck out of me. I had no idea what was going on. Got paid today or you can't come in tomorrow, whatever. And I went in and, long story short, they just said, raise your prices. I'd done door-to-door sales prior to that for 9 months. I'd been a server, I've been a Division I athlete. So as soon as I got people on the phone, I started dropping the prices. I started racking them up, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Made 10K in a week. I called my parents, said, "Hey, let me move home. I'll pay you guys $1,000 of rent." I knew I'd save $2,000 on rent a month. And I just stayed in their room 16 hours a day for the next year. And then I made $1 million. I got one of these awards right here from ClickFunnels. And a bunch of trainers, because of it, I didn't plan this, but a bunch of trainers just started asking me for help. They're like, "Yo, dude, I mean, I saw you became a millionaire in fitness. I want to be a millionaire in fitness."
So what were you selling the same thing that got you to that million, or were you selling something that transitioned to that?
Well, to the trainers, or like before, like the low ticket offer?
Well, yeah, the low ticket, you said you upped the prices. Was it the same thing? And you
it was the same thing with one-on-one coaching and some more customization. So the product they would buy, it would have like different meal plans and different stuff they could pick from. So it went from a digital product to consulting or coaching, right? And because I was giving them more access to me and communication, all that, you could justify a higher price. Because I was able to sell more, like I now have money for ads and hiring, and I could do a lot more. And so I said, "Oh my gosh, I wish I'd been doing this the whole time."
And what were you giving them? You were giving them the toolbox, you were giving them websites, you were giving them info product?
Really, it was super simple. So for the fitness clients, it was just customized meal plan, workout program, calls when they needed, a lot of texting and stuff. But it was really how I positioned it in the marketing, because ultimately, like, coaching is really, like fitness coaching specifically, it's all the same.
Yeah.
But it was how I was positioning in the marketing. So my marketing was how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results. So it really was just if it fits your macros.
Yeah.
But I positioned it as something else, right? And I said, "Hey, as long as you stay in these parameters and guidelines, you can eat whatever you want." People are like, "Whoa, are you serious?"
Right. They got their attention.
Yeah, they didn't know difference between a calorie or a protein or a fat. I mean, it blew my mind. I just couldn't believe it. So I started making a lot of money from that. And then I had a huge amount of trainers approach me. And at first I said no, because I hated coaches. I hated consulting. I'd had very bad experiences. To that point, I'd paid probably 60 grand. And I would say most of it I felt had been a waste. Now that I'm on the other side, I understand, their position a little better, but I really didn't want to do it. Finally, I said yes after I had about 15 people on a waiting list ready to pay me 10 grand. And, I'm 25 and I'm going, $150,000. Like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I started helping those trainers, and then that blew up extremely quickly. I was able to take over that industry, I would say, fairly fast. I went 1 to 10 million that year. And then we had more people outside of fitness start asking. And then I opened Elite COs. We did 15 million. And then we had done for you services, and we went to 25 million. And then that was the biggest years I've had, 25 million a year. So that's a long story short. Once I got the right strategy, because I think success is 3 things. It's characteristics, beliefs, and skills. I had the characteristics and beliefs. I didn't realize it at the time, but I had it. I just didn't have the proper strategy, so to speak. And so once I had that, it was game over. Most people, I think, they go into it and, they have maybe the right strategy, or they have skills, but they don't have the characteristics or beliefs. They're not willing to work hard. They don't believe in themselves, et cetera, et cetera. But that's really my path. And so in hindsight, I saw the silver lining, and that's what's really helped me as I've gotten more mature and older, because now when I struggle, I just, like, in the back of my head, I go, this will be a silver lining in a couple of years. I'm going to look back at this and I'm going to be like, because this bad thing happened, it forced me to do this, which got me there. And a lot of people don't look at life that way, or failure that way. That's why they quit. And that's really been my secret to success, is just, I'm willing to usually outwork most people. I'm willing to, like, strive more. Like, for example, today's another 16-hour day. I had a massive concussion 2 weeks ago. I almost died. And I could have died. Yeah. And
what happened?
They don't know. What's funny, until this morning, I thought I fell. So it's a stand-up scooter. Mm-hmm. But now they think a car hit me. But I don't remember, because when I had the concussion, I hit the ground so hard. It was actually, you can see it right here. I had more. My face was like super messed up. But I hit the ground so hard, I can't remember anything. I can't remember if I hit a car. I can't remember if I hit the ground. So it's only a mystery. But they said, they're like, you hit your head pretty hard, you could have died, type of deal. And when the ambulance found me, I'm in Miami, so they thought I'd had a long night, basically passed out or something. They didn't know. But yeah, I just said that to say I'm still pushing and doing the things I need to do. And I think most people, it's like, hey, you got a good excuse. You had a big concussion. But when I have stuff on my plate that needs to get done, I just take it very seriously, and I don't want to let people down. I don't want to let myself down, and we're all going to die anyway. So I don't know. I'm not saying health's not important. I'm very much into health, but I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, like how you view yourself and your relationship with yourself and like how you feel about yourself is very important. And so when I do things that are difficult, but I know I need to do them, the next day I always have a lot of pride. Whenever I don't, I just feel shame or I feel guilt. And some people might, they might try to say that's a bad thing, but it's really motivating me to be super successful. And I just feel like I have a lot to prove to myself, and I always feel I can do more. And that's what I try to do.
Yeah. So the three characteristics you mentioned: characteristics, strategy, and skills. So how does somebody discover if they have characteristics? What are they?
Yeah. So it's characteristics, beliefs, and then skill, right?
Okay.
And for example, the characteristics, when I think about characteristics, it's just, do you work hard? Like, do you get up early? Are you like healthy? Like, do you have energy? Like that type of stuff. Like, what type of person are you? So if you're a lazy person, most people go, yeah, like person's not pretty rich because they're lazy. So the characteristics came from a young age. I mean, at 12 years old, I was going to the gym because I got made fun of. So that's why I thank the bullies. I was going to the gym at 5 a.m. in the morning, and at 12 years old, working out before school. And then I got dropped off to first period.
Wow.
And then it was a gym class, right? And that built a lot of characteristics around discipline, hard work, consistency, because I saw it happen. Like my life literally changed in 3 months. I went from a loser in the grade to like, I was very well respected. I was one of the best players on the football team. And especially in Texas, that's a big deal because that's where I grew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beliefs then started to happen, because the funny thing with beliefs is, as you have success, usually the reason people aren't successful is they start doing something and they have zero belief because there's no proof.
Yeah.
You have to push through that though, because what happens is once you get results, then belief comes, and that reinforces you doing the work, which then gives you more results. So from a young age, I kept seeing it, like grades, I get straight A's. I'd start doing well with girls. I got to play Division I football. I made varsity as a 14-year-old. I was one of three sophomores because we're at a 6A high school, very big high school. So that was one of my goals. I gave it my whole summer. And so I think early in my career, or the age I was at, I just kept seeing over and over, like hard work pays off. Hard work pays off. My dad played a big role in that. I didn't appreciate it as a kid, but my dad is one of the hardest workers I've ever met now. Because when I got older and I was an adult, I started to see my friends' parents are like, oh, like you guys don't work hard at all. And I just thought it was normal.
Wow.
Like, the way my dad and my mom raised me, it was just very much, you got to get a scholarship, you got to pay for your own stuff. Like it just wasn't, there was no handouts, right? And that's just how I grew up, but I thought it was normal. So I think if people go through those difficult things, they get those. Some people don't. They have a very easy childhood. And so when they get older, they don't have those characteristics or beliefs. And so even though they might have the skill, it's not enough to be successful. In terms of the skill, I think your question was, how do they know if they have the skills? If you look at I just talk about my journey. I mean, I did door-to-door sales for 9 months. So when it came to, and that mentor I had, he had me build out a whole product. So I learned about funnels, emails, ads, opt-ins. I did that. So I didn't realize it at the time, but once I finally had the right vehicle with the pricing strategy, all that stuff came back. I was like, oh, now I need the funnels. Now I need and so I had all those things. So I think for most people, it's like when you're going through school, you're learning skills as you go through school. In business, it's the same thing. It's just marketing, it's ads, it's fulfillment, it's operations, it's technology, it's all those things. So you just have to put yourself through that. And so if you haven't learned any of those things, that's an easy way to know. Or you haven't done any classes, or you haven't done any courses, you haven't done any coaching. From a young age, I just really pushed myself. And, football just transitioned to business. All I did is it changed from physical exertion to mental exertion. And I was like, I just knew what to expect. So when I went up against a wall, even though I almost quit a few times, every time I almost quit, I had that mentor, but it was almost as if I knew I wasn't going to quit. It was, I didn't want to deal with being a loser. I was so afraid of someone looking at me and saying, oh, what a loser, that I just wasn't able to quit ever. And so every time I almost did, I stuck with it. But then when I finally figured it out, like everything changed. And those things in my life have really shaped a lot of my mindset now as an older adult.
Yeah. And that's what took you to that first million, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like I went in 12 months, I went from zero, like basically 2 years, I made $2,000 and then I did $1 million. Because all those things just gel, like right when I had all three things simultaneously, it just like exploded. And it blew even my mind. I was shocked at how well stuff worked. I couldn't believe it.
So just to clarify, just to make sure I understand, what took you from, when you upped your prices and you finally decided to coach, what were you providing people to take you to that million?
Well, I mean, the big thing, I'll explain the coaching, but the big thing was just marketing. I finally learned how to acquire leads. That was the biggest thing because I couldn't get enough leads. In terms of the coaching and what they got for fitness, it was like I said, customized workout, customized meal plan, communication, etc. The biggest thing was how I positioned. And so, I sat down and I said, okay, psychologically, what do most people want? They want to eat like shit and they want to look great.
Right. Yeah.
So I said, how can I ethically tell them they can eat bad and look amazing, but still be truthful? And so for me, if you think about it, you won't feel as good. And I say that even in my stuff, but I said, how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results and still look amazing. So I would get on the phone and I'd say, look, you're not going to stop eating cake or drinking beer. So let's just cut the shit, right? Like that's not the plan. If you do, you'll lose weight, but we're going to add it back in. So the goal and what we're trying to do is how can you have it and still look good? That's what I'm going to teach you. And you'd be shocked, but I just looked the part. I was super jacked and super in shape. I'm still in shape now, but the concussion kind of, found me the pantry, so to speak. And I'm trying to get it off right now, but it was just shocking me how many people they were so used to being like, do this, eat this. And so I think the flexibility was very enticing to them. And I just made a lot of money that way. And to be frank, I say this all the time. There's a lot of trainers out there who probably were better than me.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel bad in that sense because the richest person isn't always, I think, in the highest levels of scale. Like if you talk about billionaire, sure, but you don't have to become rich. You don't even have to have a good product. That's a myth. Like you can get away if you could just sell because it's perceived value.
Right.
Now in the long run, will it hurt your reputation and stuff like that? Sure. But like fitness coaching, and there's nothing crazy. It's like eat less, move more at the end. Like however you do that is great, but it's really not that complex if you think about it.
So what skills took you were they different skills that took you from the 1 million to the 25? Or did you develop new skills for that? Or was it pretty much doing the same thing over and over?
Great question. So I'd say 0 to 100,000 a month is pretty much the CEO. You can pretty much grind your way there. You'll have a couple staff members. You'll have like a couple setters, maybe your fulfillment director. But I mean, pretty much you're still heavily involved in everything. You're taking the sales calls, you're managing the setters, you're managing you're pretty involved. For me to scale, the second year, I went 1 to 10 million like per year. Massive growth in team building and development. And I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm so good at it is because when you make a lot of mistakes, and
right.
actual mental disability, you learn what not to do. But most entrepreneurs can't get past 100,000 a month usually because they don't understand hiring, training, team building. Like you have to treat hiring as if you would a wife. And most people, they don't treat it that way. They have a need. They just want to fill it very quickly. They bring someone in. That person is a net negative to the company. They don't hold the values. They don't have the skills. You're basically paying them and helping them do the job. So you're not really getting your time back.
Wow.
And that was what I had to learn. And so now I'm very picky who I hire. I'm overly picky who I hire because you make a wrong hire, the business is only as good as your team because you realize at 100,000 a month, you're out of time. There is no more time. You're working as hard as you can, 16 plus hours. Like there's no more time. And so at that point, the business is only as good as your team. And I started to realize that by hiring the wrong people, it really affected my business because especially if fulfillment, like if you have the wrong coach or the wrong account manager, they judge your company off their experience with that person. And so if you're not doing anything wrong, I just would make the wrong decisions sometimes and it would just affect my company. If I could do all the jobs, oh my gosh, I would love to clone myself. I think
right.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So when you're scaling from that place, who is your first hire? Is it somebody who is it? Who do you recommend now that you've made those mistakes? What
Yeah,
do you
so
tell people?
I'm always a fan of hiring the least important position. And what I mean by that is, where can you mess up and the business can still survive? So for me, that's fulfillment. Now, fulfillment is still important, but sales is by far the most important. If you stop making sales, the business dies.
Right.
So the first thing I hired out, and it was also the most time consuming, was fulfillment. After fulfillment, it was lead generation. So all the texting, the messaging, all that type of stuff.
Right.
The last thing to go is sales, because that's the most important, right?
Yeah.
So some people will do it backwards, where they get the setter first and they do lead generation. But in most cases, if you can do it and you have the time to do it, there's no point in hiring someone. I would wait till the last second. Some people will hire kind of prior, before they need to. I'm not a huge fan of that in the beginning, because you learn a lot of skills and you learn exactly how to do it, so you can teach the next person who comes in. But yeah, as an account manager, that's the first person I hired.
Yeah, because if you didn't hire somebody to do the fulfillment early on, but you had all this stream of things coming in, then suddenly you're at a place like, how am I going to fulfill all this stuff coming in, right? Mm-hmm. And so you kind of get in this place of, I've got all these projects, I've got all these tasks, I've got all these things that I've got to fulfill, but I don't have the people in place to fulfill it.
Right. Yeah. And it just took the most time. Like, so if you think about when you start getting, you're around 20,000 a month, you have 20 to 40 clients, you're spending hours a day on fulfillment. If you get that time back, you can now put that into lead generation. So
right. Because
people,
you're the face of it anyway, right? Or you're
right. And most people are not that good at sales. I'm able to say I'm very good at sales, but that's because I did door to door. And so I just have I psychologically and mentally, I've just been able to see so many things and so many objections that it's really given me an edge in sales, where, I can pretty much sell anyone if I really want to, if they have an interest, right? Like, I even think Jordan Belfort talks about that. If someone, they don't care, but if they care, there's a lot of techniques and things I learned just naturally by selling in person, because you have a very split second to reply. On a phone call, you could take a couple seconds. In person, they can tell right away if you don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great point too. It's a lot harder to sell somebody that's not interested in doing better, changing, upgrading. It's a lot tougher of a sell, and identifying that early is definitely a skill.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely comes down to when you can learn how to hire a team, you can make a lot more money. So I'll just say that.
Yeah. So going back to the question before is what skill or what changed as far as in how you did things to take you from that first million to, whatever, 10 or 25? What were some of the skills? Were there any that changed, or is there something specifically that you can point out?
Well, the first skill that made the biggest difference is I just learned how to run paid traffic at a very high level. And I also had, big cojones, for lack of a better word. I went from $3,000 to spend to 6 to 12 to 24 to 50 to 100 to 2. I mean, we just, as soon as it worked, I was like, yo, let's go.
Wow.
I'm a very aggressive person. So I'm very efficient. So one of the other things that really helped me when I look back at scaling is I just would hire people. I say, here's the job, do the job. If you can't do the job, you're gone. Bye.
Yeah.
As I got older, I thought there was an issue with that, because some people told me, they said, hey, a lot of people aren't, wired the way you are. You need to kind of chill out, and you need to kind of have more tolerance. And I read some leadership books, and I kind of started doing that. But I think some of the leadership books out there, they assume that everyone's smart. Right? and that's not the case. So what happened is, as I became more tolerant, what happened is I hired people who didn't have the same standards. When you think of values, if you just meet me as a normal person, I value hard work. I value discipline. I value, I don't know if you want to say the grind, but I value, I do what I say I'm going to do no matter what.
Right.
I don't care if I have a concussion or not. And some people, they don't think that way. They think the opposite. And it's not that they're a bad person. It's just that if you bring that type of person on your team and you think differently, that they're not going to perform at the level you're hoping, because when things go bad or your head's not looking, they won't do it. And so I regret a lot of hires I made from that context, from that place. And what the advice I would give some now is if you have high standards, good, raise them higher and make it hard for people to come on your team, because the better your standards are, the higher they are, the better the quality of the person on the team, and your team will perform better, which you'll beat competitors. I disagree with just, yeah, be tolerant, let people on the team, whatever. And yeah, it will take longer and it's more work, but isn't anything great or worthwhile? So it always goes back to the same thing. If it's easier, it's almost always the wrong answer. Almost everything in life that is quote unquote worth it is difficult, and it makes sense because most people won't do it. So the harder it is, you just have to look at that and say, oh, this is what's going to get me to the next level because other people aren't willing to do this.
Right. And that's kind of, I guess, it comes down to culture, right? Is you establish the culture and you say that in my company, this is how people behave. This is the expectations. This is the rewards. These are the disciplines. I mean, that's what culture is, what do you punish? What do you celebrate? What do you tolerate? What are you for? What are you against? All of those things. And so, you had that culture established, but people tried to kind of put another culture on you, right? And you realize they were wrong.
Well, and it's funny too. So Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, two of the richest guys in the world, most people I think would say they're a-holes. That's usually the consensus I get from, oh yeah, they're too hard. They're the richest guys. Like, end of the day, you got to get performance. And yeah, I don't think you have to be an a-hole doing it, but Elon Musk just comes off to me as like a no BS guy. He's like, this is what we're doing. This is what you got to do. If you can't do it, bye.
Right.
And people get upset about that, but that's what it takes to win, in my opinion. So I wish I'd been less tolerant and I'd gone the other direction, because I think over time that really hurt me. And what it sucks, because when you get upset clients or you have bad things happen and you're paying that person and they're not doing a good job, man, it really sucks. Because I don't mind paying someone who you have values and skill. So in a perfect world, an A player has values and skill. I would rather hire a person who has good values and low skill, because at least they're trying.
Right.
But man, when you have someone who has high skill and low values, oh man, that is the worst. When you see the paycheck leave, man, I'll tell you that's painful. And I put myself in bad positions a few times by making poor decisions, but live and learn.
Well, and that could also be a bad influence on others if they have high skill and low values, and it could wreck culture.
It spreads like cancer, because if someone, you say, please do this, and they don't do it, and you let it slide, which sometimes in the business you have to, because, I don't know if this is the wrong thing. Sometimes I think, I should fire him right away or I should wait. But if you don't fire him right away and they see that, it starts seeping into the team, because they go, oh, he's not that serious about this. When in fact you are that serious, but you're in a hard rock in a place where, do I fire him now and take over and I'm overwhelmed, or do I wait until I find a replacement? But if you just don't make the wrong hire in the first place, you're good.
Yeah. So what else changed as you started scaling, you got to the 25, then you hit, what was the next milestone, and did anything else change, or did you kind of develop a way of doing things that kind of took you from, the 1 million to the 25 to the 100?
Yeah. So, I mean, nothing really changed. I mean, so the highest I made in a year was 25 million. The only difference is you're just doing more faster, right? So people think a lot of times, as a business grows, it becomes more complex. The complexity comes from bigger team, more staff, more clients, stuff like that. We actually were doing the same things over and over.
Yeah.
So nothing really changed from that perspective. It was just, hey, if you're spending $10,000, now we're spending $500,000 in the same time frame, right? Other than that, no, it was the same stuff. Like most of my days at that point was a lot of strategy, and then it was a lot of management, right? Like I spent a lot of time managing the team.
So now you help clients, and you've helped clients generate over $1 billion in sales. What do you first look at when a client comes to you that you see whether you can help them or not?
Great question. I mean, I'll help anyone. I'll be transparent. I'll help anyone. In terms of what's going to make them successful, the first thing is the offer. So, if they have a good offer, it mitigates poor salesmanship. It mitigates poor marketing. It mitigates, just kind of being clueless.
And what are the ingredients to a good offer? Like, what do you look for?
Honestly, it's just two things really. I mean, Hormozy has his formula, which I agree with most of it, but if you just want to make it simple, it's unique and it has low competition. And by being unique, it usually has low competition. So like in the internet marketing industry, a lot of people are consultants, right? Business consultants, coaches, whatever you want to call it. So there really isn't much you can do to make your offer unique outside of a mechanism. So if you're like, I'm a business coach or consultant, right? So if I'm in a room with 10 other guys, the only reason you might pick me is like my experience. Like, so you're like, oh, Tanner's made the most or something like that. Or you might say Tanner does this thing that these guys don't, and this gives a different result. So
Right.
it's a lot of mechanism marketing, which is tougher. The best clients I've had, or even my portfolio companies, they just have a very unique offer. So, and it's a no-brainer buy. So two of my clients that stick out that I can share is one has I'll get you into an Ivy League school with a 90% success rate.
Wow.
Right. I mean, it's like a no-brainer. The other one is I'll get you a green card. Right. So they're just absolute no-brainer offers, and they're usually offers that are marketed to non-marketers. So, one of the downsides of what I've done is, I just kept helping people, and, people who own businesses and, they're marketers. They're actually harder to market to because they know what's going on.
Yeah.
The easiest people to market to have no clue. So if it's a B2C, so business to consumer, unique offer, that's just a no-brainer. Like ultimately, the marketing is done. It's like, hey, I'll help your child get into an Ivy League school with 90% success rate. Like,
right.
That's
Sells
pretty
itself.
much it.
Yeah.
But if I say I'm going to help you grow your business to 10,000 a month or 50,000 a month or 100,000 a month, well, guess what? There's a million other people who also claim that.
Right.
And now it's all mechanism driven, which isn't as powerful.
Yeah.
And then if you want to get really wealthy, we could talk about that if you want, but it's outside this industry, and there's reasons I can share with you for that. But inside this industry, that's the number one thing I look at is the offer. And if their offer is not sexy, it's like I try to make it as sexy as I can with a unique mechanism.
Yeah. So what's next after you've got the offer and the unique mechanism? What's next that you look at to see if it's somebody who can help?
Next is lead generation. So you have to have consistent lead gen. I don't care if it's from your YouTube. I don't care if you're doing cold outreach. I don't care if you're doing ads. It's just, it has to be consistent. And that was a big thing I was missing. So once you have consistency in lead generation, you can now have predictable income. And then it makes the business not so unstable or unsafe anymore. And so a lot of the clients I work with, if they don't have consistent lead generation, we got to find it. And it's like, hey, like, here's your options. Which option makes the most sense for your situation? That's one we're going to go with. A lot of coaches will, the promises that make me nuts is like, oh, how to make, blank money without cold DMs or ads or whatever. It's like, okay, like, yeah, that sounds nice in theory, but unless you have a big organic following, you're either going to be stuck at a very small number, which is okay for most people, or that's bullshit. Like, and so ultimately, if you don't have a big audience like Mr. Beast, you can post content, right? People can engage. You can reach out to them. You can do cold outreach, which is like outreaching to strangers, or you can run ads. That's the only 3 ways to do it. And people will try to overcomplicate it, or, oh, that's not how you get clients. I mean, that's the 3 ways you get clients. And most people, they don't have a big following. Their content doesn't resonate that much. They don't have money to start. So most people, usually they'll start, likes, comments, followers, and then they got to do cold outreach. If they run out, once they have enough money, they go into paid ads. I'm not against paid ads. I'm not for paid ads. It's just for the average person, paid ads makes more sense than, hey, let's try to build you a big YouTube over the next 3 years. Like, YouTube is a long-term play, in my opinion. Like, I could have done better, right? It's harder to be a creator and run a business, but I have 30,000 subs. I've posted 1,500 videos. So could I have done better? Of course. Like, if I put more time into it, would I get a better result? Yes, but I'm also running a business. I'm a business owner. I'm not a content. Right. So it usually will take a back seat if I have other pressing matters, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. So I would imagine that if you have time but no money, go organic, go cold call, and go all that. But if you have money and no time, then go paid, right? And it's also speed, right?
Yeah, it's speed, and it's also skill, though, because in a perfect world, I would love to bring clients in day one, have them do paid. But paid only works if there's some skill, because you're going from, you're talking to strangers, so some people think, oh, paid ads is a, magical formula. It's like, no, dude, like, all it is bringing awareness. That's all it's doing. Everything else in terms of your marketing, your salesmanship, that's what converts them into clients.
Right. Well, and also, I guess the offer, right? And so you've got to nail down the offer, like you mentioned. That's one of the first things you do. Is if you have a bad offer, but you have a lot of traffic, you're wasting a lot of time and energy.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and some people, there's only so much you can do. So if they're, I talked to an individual today. He had an offer that he consults musicians. It's not bad from that standpoint. Like, it's pretty unique. There's not a lot of people doing it, but in my opinion, most musicians, they're broke. So if he has a hard time making sales, that offer could be a potential problem because he's selling to people who, in my opinion, on average, don't have a lot of money.
Right.
Stuff
Right.
like
Well,
that.
well, and it needs it to be as good as your line was. Lose weight or get fit without and eat whatever you want. It needs to be that special of an offer as opposed to just simply, I coach musicians. There
Right.
needs to be some other thing that coach them towards what is the goal? What are you going to get them for that? What are they doing that others think they have to do, but you're not going to have to do, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it also comes down to what that client can fulfill. So I have ideas for some clients, but they can't do it. I'm like, hey, you should do this, you should do that, but they don't have the skills yet.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's okay. Just the way I think about coaching or consulting is, if you're a basketball coach, and you tell LeBron James what to do and you tell a kindergartner, like, it makes sense why they don't get the same results. But, some people lose their minds and they're like, oh, I should get the same results. Like, you're not going to. Like, you're not.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Right.
But I don't own people's failures. I also don't own their success. Like, if people come through my programs and they do great, it's all them. They do bad, it's all them. And because that's the only way you can have it. You can either take all the success and all the blame, or you can take none of it. And I just choose none.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate, but that's the way I view it.
So we start with the offer, then we go to leads. You got to have some sort of traffic or whatever. You mentioned several ways to get traffic, so somebody needs to be taking notes if you're not writing notes. What's the next thing that you look at? Offer, leads. What else do you look at?
Yeah, I mean, after that, really what I look at is the fulfillment.
Yeah.
Can we increase LTV? Like, are you doing it in a way where you're following up with clients, you're giving a good service? That's the biggest thing, is a good offer or unique, and then lead generation. Then we go into fulfillment. Once fulfillment's done, then we just go into scaling. And scaling is more hiring, training, managing, all that stuff. So think of those as your three base bricks to your house. It's like offer, lead generation, fulfillment. Once we get that in place, then we can scale. And scale is just getting other people to now follow the systems you've put in place. And that's really the 4 steps,
Yeah. So which of those is the toughest?
Oh, managing, hiring, training, managing, of course.
Yeah.
I'll meet, again, like I said, if you work hard and you're patient and you just, like, you can, put some work in, you can do 100,000 a month and be a terrible CEO. Like, you're horrible with people. Like, a CEO's job is really to assemble a team. If you want to make millions of dollars, and quickly, let's say quickly, not over a long time. If you want to make them quickly, you have to learn how to leverage other people. And that means you have to learn how to motivate. You have to learn how to look and find good talent, not make the wrong hire. You have to learn how to manage. You have to learn how to, make their goals fit within your goals, which is difficult at sometimes, depending on your business model. But ultimately, the best thing you can do to get people incentivized is align their goals with yours. Because if you can align their goals with yours, they're definitely going to push for their goals. And then by them hitting their goals, you're going to hit your goal. That's the best way to do it. When you just try to bring people in, you're like, yeah, just, work hard and all this other nonsense. It just doesn't usually, I think, work unless they have those types of values already, which just comes down again to hiring. Like, that's the very first thing. So yeah, for most entrepreneurs, they're not very good at it. They don't know how to manage. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to convince them. Like, they've basically just won by brute force at that point, but they don't know how to get other people to do what they can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to your book, Infinite Income, is that the formula that you have in there, or what's within that book that is maybe different from what you've shared already?
Well, so that's my first book. I like, looking back at it, I wish I maybe spent some more time. I saw, like, I'm good friends with Alex, and he had his books come out, and I was like, okay, like, that's how you write a good book. Put 2 years into it, or however long he did. But yeah, it goes through my story, and it goes a little bit through the strategies of what I did. And, just by having the story in there, I hope it helps people relate. I was in a pretty dark spot in my life, or it felt like it at the time. And I just, talk about how I got out of there. So all the stuff I told you earlier, so sorry.
That's all right.
All the stuff, sure this is off. Okay, do it on sure. Okay. All the stuff that, shoot, I lost my place. What was,
We're talking about what's contained within infinite income and some of the things you've learned. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the stuff I spoke to you prior, my story, it just goes through that in more detail. And then it, shows people kind of the strategies. And I tried to make it practical. I tried to make it a book where you can read it and it's like, hey, this is how this guy actually did sales calls, or this is how this guy outreached to people. I used to read a lot of, business books trying to, how do I build a business? And I get through the book and I'm like, I still don't know how to build a business because there was no practical steps. It was just like, go to sleep early, like work hard, all that type of stuff. And I just don't think that stuff usually helps.
Yeah. Outside of what we've already talked about, is there a head smack that really has affected you at this stage in your life that you wish you had known when you were younger?
Maybe from a personal standpoint, from a very young age, I wanted to make a lot of money because I wanted to have optionality and choices in my life. Something that took me a few years to figure out, and I still think I'm going through it a bit, but it was interesting to me to come into a lot of wealth. I'm over 6 foot, pretty good build, and at that point, I could pretty much do whatever I wanted. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about it, but I think navigating that was somewhat difficult for me. Meaning, you build this life to be able to do whatever you want, and then you can quote unquote do whatever you want, but then I guess you have to learn the restraint in some areas, or maybe that's probably not the best move to go about your life. You can move that into dating, you can move that into, partying, you can move that into like spending money, whatever. And, I just had never experienced that before. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about it, or some of that stuff is just a little bit more hush hush where, like if I go up to a guy and I say, hey dude, how is your relationship with your wife and this and that, some guys, they don't want to talk about it, or they just give you a surface level answer. So that was probably the only other thing that it was really hard for me to navigate. And I had to use some personal experience because I had to figure out how I wanted to live my life. And when you are in a position when you can quote unquote do anything, I don't know what my percentile is, but I think for my height and the amount of money and stuff like that, like it's pretty low or pretty high, however you want to put it. When you have a lot of optionality, you have to like really decide who you're going to be versus, if you're 5'0" and you make 30 grand a year, you don't really have a lot of options, right? And
right.
Hopefully that came off in the right way, but that was an interesting thing for me to go through and learn from. And there didn't seem like there was a lot of places I could go for advice where I could get an honest answer. And it makes sense because it's very personal. Depending on what the topic was, it could be very personal, right?
Right. And when you have those options, you decide what your values are. I mean, that's where your values really come head to head with, I have so many more options than somebody else. And now I've got values that come against those options. And who am I going to be? And who am I when those options come up?
Yeah. And, for me, just to be more transparent, my thing has always been, women. Like I would always like, and I wouldn't say I would always, but I think because of a kid, I don't know for sure, like, of course. But I look back, I was bullied a lot. I was kind of a loser. I came into some, success. I started being treated better. And so I don't know where that comes from, but it was always interesting to me, coming to success, you get a lot of attention from women. And then, what kind of guy do you want to be? Do you want to have a lot of girlfriends? Do you not want to have girlfriends? And, I grew up very religious, but I'm not quite as religious anymore. So there wasn't any kind of religious thing holding me down. And so, I guess kind of navigating that, so to speak, and seeing all spectrums of guys out there, like, you got all the way from Andrew Tate to, a pastor, right? And trying to figure that out was a little bit, I don't know why, but it's just always been something I think I've enjoyed more, and trying to kind of figure out right from wrong or the best way to go about my life in that area was difficult. But I'm in a better place now, I think. But I struggled with that for a while, and I wasn't really too sure what to do. And I always try to do the right thing. I try to be a good guy, but uh, I guess I just didn't know the right way to go about it. And
Yeah.
the one good thing, and I guess it's a bad thing too, is I don't ever want to choose something because other people tell me to.
Right.
And so that can make me a little bit stubborn sometimes because I want to feel like it's my decision.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
even if society's doing it, sometimes I go, that doesn't mean that much because, I want to be my own person, if that makes sense. So,
Right. Right. And it's also like, what kind of baggage do you want to pick up to take into the next phase of your life, and
right.
so when you're talking relationships, when you're talking behaviors and values and all of that, it's like, okay, well, what kind of baggage do I pick up and then carry with me into my next relationship, into my next endeavor with business and all of that. And so your values and your options, that's where the conflict happens. You decide, okay, here's what's worth it, here's what I don't want to carry into the next phase of who I'm going to be and how my business is going to be, or who I'm going to date or marry or whatever. Right.
Yeah. It's just interesting, I think. And well, and you know, I, if I could, if I would give up all my wealth right now, if I could, talk to God or our creator and just ask him a couple questions. Because there's a couple things about how the life works where I'm just like, is that a me thing? Is it
Yeah.
how things are? But all this, we don't all have the answers, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
there was some stuff that really bothered me deeply for a while, and I wasn't sure if there was something wrong with me. I wasn't sure if I just maybe had more proclivity for a certain thing or whatever. But anyways, it's been good in hindsight. Like all trials and like struggles like help you grow, and so it kind of helped me go pretty deep, I guess, in like personal relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what's next for you now that you've achieved all this stuff? Now that you're helping a lot of businesses grow. What's next for you?
Yeah, so I mean, at first I thought I'd retire, and I did for 6 months, and I came back and I started working again, and I didn't realize how bad I had felt. I think it's like eating at McDonald's for 6 months. The first couple of days maybe you feel bad, but then you get used to it, and that becomes normal. And I remember that feeling, and I said, "Wow, that's interesting." That's very interesting. So really now what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to go to the next level. I feel I've accomplished everything I can accomplish in this industry. I still have it. I still love it. Like I still coach people, still have clients, et cetera. But I'm really trying to go to the next level. And for me, the biggest plays you can get in is tech, private equity, or hedge funds. And I'm really starting to dabble in those. And it really just comes down to pushing myself. There's no other reason. I don't need any more money. I'm just not motivated by that anymore, to be quite
Yeah.
honest with
Yeah.
you. But I really enjoy the personal development, and I really feel business is one of the best personal development vehicles out there. Outside of maybe a romantic relationship, I think that can also help you grow. But I don't know, like I don't have all the answers. I just know I feel the best when I'm doing that, and I feel the most pride. And so for
Yeah.
me, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to push as hard as I can. And to be honest, I think the most successful people in the world, they have a different motivating factor. And I think it's revolved around that, because ultimately a lot of what we do here, I don't personally think matters that much. I don't think anyone's going to die and be like, oh my gosh, Tanner, did a billion. Like, I don't think anyone is going to care if I get to that point. So that's really what I'm trying to do, is I'm just trying to push. And I know that makes me a little bit of an outlier, but I'm okay with that. And I just surround myself around people who think the same way.
Yeah, well, and you've got to have that, what does the next season look like? Because, I don't know the difference, but they say that once you hit a certain amount, a certain million, whether you hit 1 million and then you hit 10 million, your lifestyle doesn't change a whole lot at that point. And
At all.
so you need something to take you into the next season. You need some sort of vision. You need some sort of motivation, some sort of a big picture vision of your life, or else you kind of do get bored, right?
Yeah, I'm not a huge thing guy either. I went through my phase. I had 3 supercars. I lived in an overly priced condo, stuff like that. It was interesting when I was single. I enjoyed it. When I had a girlfriend, I did not, and that feeling made me go, "Oh, that's interesting. Maybe this isn't because I enjoy it. It's because of ego." Because when you're single,
Wow.
you're all this types of attention and stuff like that. Or it would impress guys, right? And I started realizing, I'm not really in the game to impress guys, so to speak. So at least for me, if you enjoy that stuff, more power to you. Great. That's awesome. I wish I enjoyed it as much as other people. But, after 6 months, your brain resets, and whatever you had, you got to get something bigger. And so for me, that just wasn't a game I wanted to play anymore. I really enjoy using my money for experiences and my personal development. Like, there's nothing I think you can do better than investing in yourself. And whether it goes good or bad, like bad meaning you don't get an ROI out of it, good meaning you do. I mean, you learn. Like when you learn, you'll learn. Learning what not to do is just as powerful as learning what to do. And a lot of people,
Right. So what's a head smack or a question that I haven't asked you about scaling that you'd like to talk about or like to share?
Oh man. You've done a pretty good job. I think the only thing I want to reiterate is, most people, I think if they drop their expectations for how life should be or how stuff should be, they'll lose a lot of anger and resentment. I've even noticed this in my life recently. I've been really busy, and my girlfriend's, been trying to clean up and, do whatever she can to help me, which is one of the reasons I love her. She's great. But, some of the stuff's been misplaced lately. And, this morning I was all upset and all this stuff. And then I just, realized the reason I'm upset is because I'm busy and I'm tired and I'm stressing. But I just realized if I just drop my expectations where things are going to be in the right place and like there can't be mistakes and stuff, a lot of that dissipates. So it doesn't mean I don't continue to strive for excellence. And obviously this example is not that big a deal. Like, a Kleenex box being in the wrong spot or like myself or whatever. But I just think most people, the point I'm trying to make is they want to be successful, but they have an idea of how long it should take or when it should get there and how easy it should be or how hard it should be. And so they quit because their expectations do not match reality. And so for me, again, like I just have really tried to train myself, no matter how hard it feels, no matter how tired I am, no matter how sad I am, I just push.
Yeah.
And last night, I remember before bed, I was so tired. I think mostly because of this concussion, but I was so tired that, I almost felt like I could cry. Like, I know that sounds kind of weird, but I was so tired. I felt like I could almost cry because I just had no more energy left.
Yeah.
But I was doing what I had to do. And I think, a lot of people, if they watch me work, you wouldn't be as surprised I've had the success I had, but that's a trade-off. And I'm not saying you have to work yourself to death to be successful, but I like to do everything I feel I can do so that I leave as little chance to luck as possible. I want to have as much say in my success and what happens as possible. And I just wanted to point that out because I think a lot of people, if they had that mindset, there'd be a lot more successful people and a lot more like unhappiness and a lot more success. Because, it's a big thing with clients. I think sometimes what they want and their expectations of what it's going to take to get there do not align. And that's why they quit or they get upset. So,
well, and I'm sure people wonder, what keeps a person that has reached a certain level of success going, like Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet. Like at that point, I would retire and just chill. Like, and with you, hitting the goals that you've hit, you did chill for a little bit. And you wonder what keeps you coming back. And is it just that inner drive or is there something else?
Yeah, it's just personal development. So like one of the stories that helped me realize that money wasn't going to do it is I had a goal to hit $1 million in a month. I did it in 18 months. I sacrificed everything to get there. When I say sacrifice everything, friends, relationships, dating, I mean, the whole nine. Like it was just I'd be working like like I am right now. Like even this podcast is technically working, like I'd be working. And I had a huge party in Miami, just bought 3 supercars, had a Lambo SVJ, the car is over $1 million now. And a guy showed up and he said, "Hey, whose party is this?" He was a random. And I was like, "Oh, it's my party. Thanks for coming." And he's like, "Yeah, what's party for?" And I said, "Oh, I just hit $1 million a month, blah, blah, blah." And, went on this whole tirade. And he looked at me and you could tell he was like unimpressed. And he said, "Great." And that moment just really messed me up because I sat there and thought, I just did something 99% of people won't do. And he doesn't give a crap. And then I started thinking, so what does that mean for Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg? It's like, and if I'm never that good, it's not going to mean anything. And so that really took me down a deep spiral for a while. And I actually went off and did some stuff that people would consider crazy. One of the good things and bad things about me is I'm very driven and I'm very type A. So when I get desperate, like you'll see me do crazy stuff. Like I'd be on the street, like I'd be homeless, like holding up the sign. I do it all.
Yeah.
So long story short is I started going to a lot of therapy. I did some psychedelic stuff, hoping, I just was really looking, what's the purpose of life, right?
Yeah.
And after I went down that for a while, at least for me, I just realized, no one 100% knows. If you're religious, you might think you have an idea, but none of us 100% knows. And so I said, okay, I'm going to be here. Like, unless I'm going to try to leave the earth sooner than later, which I don't think is a good idea for anyone. So I said, I'm going to be here. So what's going to drive me and like, what's going to give me purpose or what's going to make me feel good? And really at this point, I just want to personally develop as much as I can. I want to do hard stuff for no other reason than just to try to become the best version of myself. And all I can tell you is when I have a hard days at work and I push to follow my meal plan and work hard and like be kind to people and help my team, and I have a lot of pride. And when I don't do that, it's not that I'm a bad person, or it's not that, I think it's really going to make a huge difference in the grand scheme, but I don't feel as good. I have more shame. I have more guilt. I don't feel as good. And, I've just learned that from experience. And so for me, that's just really the goal for me, is that what helps me drive is I don't feel good about who I am and where I'm going when I don't try. When I'm trying, I've realized it doesn't matter what results I get. Regret, I think, stems from lack of effort. I do not think it stems from lack of results. So the goal for everyone, I think, and I don't know what the purpose is. Maybe, one day I'll talk to God and he'll tell me. I would love to know. Like, I'm a very curious person, but for me, I think the biggest thing is I can try to backtrack. So sorry about that, man. Jeez, that's probably annoying for you. I apologize.
No. That's the first time that's happened. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, but I guess what I was trying to say is just the next thing for me, or why I'm so driven, is just, to me, we're trying to go through life and figure what stuff is about. And I've just tried to listen more to my intuition, or you can call it, God, or you could call it the spirit, whatever. But when I ignore how I feel in the moment, like let's say I want to donut, or I want to skip the gym, or, I want to cuss out a customer. Sometimes I do. And I've done it and I don't feel as good after. And then when I ignore that and I do, the thing that my older self would be proud of, I feel better. And I can get more into depth on that, but it's funny. It makes you unstoppable too, because no matter where I get, like, I always want to be better. And I think that's the end game of life. If you can get to that place, you will really enjoy your life. And if you don't, I don't know. I don't really know what I guess you're floating, and I don't really know what to say for that. For me, like, that's the direction I want to go.
Man, that's so awesome. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I really have enjoyed what you shared, and I think a lot of good stuff when it comes to both life and business that you've shared, especially around scaling a business and taking it to the next level. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from it and be able to see where, maybe their business can go next level and change and adapt and really look at some of their things that they've got in place, whether it comes to their offer, whether it comes to lead generation, whether it comes through scaling the internally and making sure they're ready for whatever that next level is. Appreciate this conversation, man. This has been awesome, Tanner.
Yeah, thanks for asking good questions. I can always tell after I've had a good interview because I'm very excited about it. So hopefully that came across, and sorry if I talked too much, but that got me excited.
That's phenomenal, man. It was really, really good stuff, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
You are listening to Conversations with Misfits, Mavericks, and Trailblazers.